reflect together. The gospel reading this morning is from the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 13, verses 31 to 33 and beyond. And these are some parables of Jesus. As you know, Jesus often taught in parables or stories. And he also often invited his listeners to hear him by saying, "Let anyone with ears to hear listen." And that's your response this morning that's in the bulletin. So after each of these short parables, we'll say that together. "Let anyone with ears to hear listen." Jesus put before them another parable. "The kingdom of heaven," he said, "is like a mustard seed that someone took and sowed in his field. It is the smallest of all the seeds. But when it has grown, it is the greatest of shrubs and becomes a tree, so that the birds of the air come and make nests in its branches." Respond with me, please. "Let anyone with ears to hear listen." He told them another parable. "The kingdom of heaven, the beloved community of God, we can call it sometimes, is like yeast that a woman took and mixed in with 3 measures of flour until all of it was leavened. Let anyone with ears to hear listen." "The kingdom of heaven," he said, "is like a treasure hidden in a field, which someone found and then hid. Then in his joy he goes out and sells all that he has and buys that field. Let anyone with ears to hear listen." Again, the kingdom of God, the beloved community of God, is like a merchant in search of fine pearls. On finding one pearl of great value, he went and sold all that he had and bought it. Let anyone with ears to hear listen. Here end our readings this morning, and may the church hear what the Spirit is saying today. What is the one thing you want right now? Up on the high places at Gibeon, God came to young King Solomon in a dream in the middle of the night and asked him that question. "Tell me what I should give you. What do you most want or need in your life right now?" How would you respond? Well, if we're honest, the first things that come to mind for most of us are pretty mundane. Right now, I bet some of you in the back just want one of those casseroles you can smell back in the kitchen. Someone else just thought of that NutriBullet blender they've been wanting for some time, and that thought quickly gave way to a desire for a fruit smoothie. On a more serious note, maybe you want to hear news of a new job or a project at work or your college admissions, and maybe all of the above. Our minds are funny things, aren't they? They're constantly bubbling over with random thoughts, worries, and desires. As a result, they're so easily distracted by those who want to sell us products, entertainment, or the latest news. No wonder we don't know how to pray as we ought, as the Apostle Paul said. There are so many things for which to pray, so many things we want. Please, God, let that sale on the NutriBullet system still be going on today after church. Oh, and let Smoothie King be open, for the ride home. Our minds just bubbling over with random thoughts, worries, and desires. Many of them inserted there by others, advertisers, peers, crazy politicians, even some of them a long time ago by our parents. Yet down below that never-ending stream of mental chit-chat, down below the never-ending clamoring of the ego for satisfaction, there are depths we rarely reach, the deeper desires of our hearts. Desires for genuine relationship with others, for a sense of hope and meaning, for peace in our hearts and in the world, for healing and well-being, for ourselves and for those we love, as well as for our neighbors and for our world. What is the one thing you most want right now? In 1 Kings, we're told that Solomon went deeper. Now, we don't know for sure if that's really what happened, because 1 Kings was partly written to glorify the monarchy in Jerusalem, so what we probably have here is an idealized picture of the king. But let's go with it. instead of asking for himself alone, for long life or riches, for the defeat of his enemies, or even for wisdom for himself alone. Solomon in this story asks for understanding, for wisdom, to discern what's right on behalf of his people. In that moment, at least in his dream, he was able to see beyond his own desires to the actual needs of his people, many of whom just longed for enough to eat, a home to live in, a decent living for their families, in a society where they were treated fairly.